Where the hell is Arman Tsarukyan? A lot has been going down at lightweight after a period of gridlock. We finally saw the top move and what the title picture would look like, with Islam Makhachev relinquishing the belt to move up to 170, leaving Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria to duke it out for the now vacant belt at 317. And even before that, we got the announcement for Dustin's last fight, with that being a third fight with Max Holloway in his home state of Louisiana. But through all of the announcements and movement in the lightweight division, one name remained untouched, and it was none other than the number one contender, Arman Tsarukyan. Despite beating the guy that's fighting for the belt in a month, despite being scheduled to fight for the belt back in January, and despite being the literal number one contender, like I said before, Arman still has no fight scheduled, let alone a clear path to the belt. I feel like fans are starting to notice that the number one contender is still not set up for a fight, and this is pretty much how I feel like, though I can't really say this verbatim. So what the hell happened? How did Arman Tsarukyan pretty much completely fall out of the title picture? So let's go back to last year. It's UFC 300, the biggest card of 2024, and one of the highlight fights of the main card is a number one contender fight at lightweight between former champion Charles Oliveira and young and rising contender Arman Tsarukyan. Arman by this point was looking hot. He's currently on a 3-fight winning streak with a quick knockout win over Beneil Dariush, another knockout win over Joaquim Silva, and finally a decision over Damir Ismagulov. And we would continue this hot streak with this fight with Charles Oliveira, but not without adversity, as he got caught early in a tight guillotine in the first round, and had he not been wearing these shorts, the outcome would be entirely different. But anyways, he would survive the early scare and would shift the momentum of this fight with his wrestling. In the end, Arman would clinch the win with a split decision and would clearly claim the number one contender spot with a win over a former champion. But this is where things get a little complicated for Arman. Apparently, almost immediately after Arman gets the win over Charles, he is already offered a title shot against Islam for UFC 302, only 2 events away, or about less than 2 months to prepare for the biggest fight of his life. So of course, Arman would decline this insanely short notice to fight for the belt, and Islam would instead defend his title against Dustin Poirier in a thriller for UFC 302. So while Islam was recovering, Arman waited. And he would finally get his title shot with ample time, as he was scheduled to fight Islam for the first event of the year, 2025, with the headliner of UFC 311. And everything was looking good. Arman was training and looking good. He improved a lot from their first encounter, and though he was definitely the underdog in this fight, he stylistically would match up very well for Islam, as he is probably the next best wrestler in this division and has shown he can go grapple for grapple with Islam Makhachev. But something would unfortunately happen for Arman the Wednesday prior before the fight. Apparently, after training, Arman would feel pain in his lower back, but ignore it and continue with his weight cut. Though when he started his weight cut, things got significantly worse and so bad that he couldn't move. Arman believes that this injury was the same injury flaring up from pulling his back 2 years ago, and I guess it was so bad that it forced Arman to pull out of this fight. And so the UFC had to scramble to have someone fight Islam for his title defense, and was forced to have 10th ranked Renato Moicano replace Arman. And it went exactly how you would expect a 10th ranked guy to do against the pound for pound best on short notice. But with this mess Arman created, Dana was clear that Arman was not going to get an immediate title shot again when he recovered, and that he would have to go back to the drawing board, meaning he would probably need another win to get another title shot. But the thing is, a lot can change in a short period of time in the UFC. So remember, all of this happened in January of this year. In only about 4 months, Ilia Topuria would make a history-changing move to vacate his belt at 145 to permanently move up to lightweight and gun for Islam and the title. This would create a mess at the top of the lightweight division, with like 3 other guys claiming they are next for the title. But recently, this mess would be sorted out and solved when Islam pieced out and left Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria to duke it out for the title. But what about Arman? Well, with Dana adamant that Arman still needed another win to get the title shot, he was left completely on the sidelines. In the meantime, Arman competed in a grappling match in Karate Combat and won, and after that match, Arman opened up and said that the UFC was trying to book him for the main event in July at Abu Dhabi, but apparently the offer was disrespectful for Arman, as the opponent was Mateusz Gamrot, who was, in his opinion, too low in the rankings, which I understand Gamrot is number 7 and he's number 1, but considering Gamrot did beat him and he does need to fight someone before going after the title, meaning he has to fight someone below in the rankings. Anyways, I don't see this offer as being the most disrespectful offer in the world, but with Arman rejecting this fight, he puts himself back in limbo. Recently, in a training video posted on his YouTube channel, Arman opened up and said that he still does not have a fight planned and that he only wants to fight for the belt or a top 5 opponent, meaning there is no clear path to the belt again for Arman Tsarukyan. So what are Arman Tsarukyan's paths to get back to the belt? I think Arman has 3 options to get back to the belt. The first one is to just straight up wait. He's the #1 contender, which should mean something, right? After Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira decide who the next lightweight champion is, it would make sense that their first title defense should be the #1 contender, Arman Tsarukyan. Again, that would make sense, but Dana White is a petty motherfucker, and if he says that Arman needs another win before the belt, especially after ruining the first event of the year and forcing Islam to defend against Renato Moicano, I'm assuming Dana will be true to his word and make Arman face someone before getting another title shot. So the risk Arman takes with waiting is that he might not fight anyone in the time Topuria or Oliveira needs to recover from their fight, and when they look for their next opponent, Arman might not even be a name called up for that fight. So okay, Dana wants Arman to face someone, let's have him face someone. The guy that makes sense for everyone seems to be Justin Gaethje. Justin is currently the 3rd ranked contender and is coming off of a win over Rafael Fiziev. Arman said he wanted a top 5 ranked opponent, and a fight between him and Justin would fulfill that. And he went over a lightweight veteran in Justin Gaethje would 100% be a win that would take Arman to the belt. The only problem with this fight I foresee is Justin not wanting to take this fight. When Islam was champ, Justin really believed that he deserved a title shot next. Now, I don't agree with that, but considering Justin might be set on that, and if he understands his position well, with Dana White already saying that he could get a title shot next at the time Islam was champion, and that he understands that Arman is in a tough position with Dana White not letting him get the title shot, he might think that he has a solid chance to just wait it out. But I still think there's a good chance Justin Gaethje fights Arman. Justin is usually down to face everyone. I mean, he faced Max when he practically had a title shot down the line, so I think the UFC will find a way to get Justin to face Arman for that #1 contender. But what complicates things a little further for Arman is that Paddy Pimblett just announced that he rejected a fight with Arman Tsarukyan, instead wanting to fight Justin Gaethje at Abu Dhabi. So if that fight does happen, there's a solid chance that the winner of that may be favored to get the next title shot. Though there's still hope for Arman. I think Arman versus Dan Hooker makes a lot of sense as well. Okay, Dan Hooker is just outside the top 5 ranked, but I think a win over Dan Hooker would definitely take Arman to the belt. And additionally, he even expressed that he would like to take a guy like Dan Hooker since he's been winning recently. Also, this would be a fun fight because they're low-key beefing too. When Arman had to pull out of his fight against Islam in January, Dan Hooker made fun of him, and when Dan Hooker was forced to pull out with his fight against Justin Gaethje at UFC 313, Arman basically hit him with "karma's a bitch." So with this beef, there's some solid animosity to sell this fight for a main event for #1 contender, and even Dan Hooker has expressed that he wants to fight Arman as well in his return. The only problem I see here for Arman is, again, if Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett do fight, the winner of that might be favored just because Dana White does not like Arman Tsarukyan, but I think it would still make sense for Arman to fight, and he might be undeniable considering he is the #1 contender. So what's realistically going to happen? For me, what makes a lot of sense is Arman co-maining for UFC 319, which is Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis. Khamzat and Arman are boys, and they're both from the Caucasus Mountains region, so it'd be really cool to see them fight on the same card. But additionally, and more importantly, is that this is a big card in general, headlined by one of the biggest fights of the year. Getting Arman's name out there and having his name circulate as a title contender and probably the next title defense for either Ilia Topuria or Charles Oliveira would be huge. So getting his name out there on a big card makes a lot of sense. Now, who his opponent is another question. It could be Justin Gaethje, it could be Dan Hooker, but either one of those guys would be a really fun fight for Arman and to get him back into title contention. So anyways, what do you guys think about Arman Tsarukyan? Is he getting back to the belt? What's his next fight? And when is he going to fight? I want him to fight at UFC 319. That makes a lot of sense, but it's really weird to see somebody who was just the #1, or I mean, he still is the #1 contender and just was fighting for the belt, just be completely forgotten about and not even be fighting for the vacant title. You'd think the #1 contender would be fighting for a vacant title, but he pulled out in January. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.